Hunted Mafia boss begged stranger for help, but only a poor girl stopped, putting a target on her own back. The ambush had been surgical. Damon Cole, the kid Freeman had plucked from the projects, trained, trusted, had orchestrated it with the precision of a protege who'd learned every lesson too well. 3 armored SUVs, 8 bodyguards, and Freeman's supposedly secure route through the warehouse district. All compromised, all calculated, all courtesy of the man he'd loved like a son. The bullet in his shoulder burned like a brand of betrayal. Freeman had run. The great Freeman Marsh, who'd built an empire on intimidation and iron will, had abandoned his convoy and sprinted through back alleys like a common criminal. He'd flashed his Rolex, his rings, his blood-soaked designer suit at every passing car. Surely someone would recognize power when they saw it. Surely someone would stop for money. But Chicago's midnight streets had no mercy for fallen kings. The engine noise grew louder. Cole's hunters were close now, maybe 30 seconds behind. Freeman's knees hit wet pavement. This was it, the end of his legend, bleeding out in an alley that smelled like rotting garbage and broken dreams. Then that beat-up Civic stopped, and Lynn Jones made the worst decision of her life. She saved him. Chapter 1. The Escape. Lynn didn't wait for gratitude. She slammed the gas pedal, and the Civic lurched forward with a mechanical wheeze that made Freeman wince. Blood pooled on her passenger seat, his blood, expensive and red like everyone else's. "Hospital," he gasped, clutching his shoulder. "Take me to?" "They'll kill you in the waiting room." Lynn's voice was flat, mechanical. She yanked the wheel right, cutting through a gap between 2 parked delivery trucks that Freeman would have sworn was too narrow. Metal scraped metal. She didn't flinch. Behind them, headlights surged into view. 2 vehicles moving fast. Freeman twisted in his seat, pain exploding through his shoulder. "They found us. You need to. I need you to shut up." Lynn killed her headlights and took a left turn that didn't exist, not on any map Freeman had ever studied. The Civic bounced over a curb, through a chain-link gate that hung permanently open, and into what looked like an abandoned loading zone behind a shuttered textile factory. The pursuing cars blew past the intersection, their engines fading into the distance. Freeman stared at her. This exhausted girl in a cleaning company jacket had just executed an evasion maneuver his trained drivers would have botched. "How did you?" "I clean this building every Thursday." Lynn navigated through the maze of industrial debris, like she was driving through her own living room. The city maintenance crews use these access roads to avoid traffic.
No cameras. No witnesses.
No one important enough to notice. She emerged onto a narrow service alley that ran parallel to the main road, invisible to anyone who didn't know it existed. The Civic's engine settled into a rattling rhythm. Lynn's hands were steady on the wheel, her eyes scanning every shadow, every possible threat. Freeman had commanded rooms full of killers. He'd negotiated million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. But watching this poor girl navigate the hidden infrastructure of his own city, routes he'd never known existed, shortcuts carved into the bones of Chicago's working class, left him genuinely unsettled. "You do this often?" he finally asked. "Run from hitmen?" "I run from rent collectors, repo men, and building inspectors." Lynn took another turn, this one threading between 2 industrial complexes through a gap barely wider than her car. Same skill set. Different stakes. She glanced at him, her expression somewhere between contempt and calculation. "You're Freeman Marsh. I've seen you on the news. You're the reason my neighborhood looks like a war zone. And yet you stopped. Don't mistake pragmatism for kindness." Lynn's jaw tightened. "You said you'd pay anything."
"I'm going to hold you to that."
The Civic merged back into legitimate traffic, just another forgettable car in a river of headlights. Freeman looked behind them. Nothing.
No pursuit. No witnesses.
They'd vanished into the city's invisible arteries. Behind them, the city swallowed their trail. Ahead, The industrial wasteland spread out like a secret map only the invisible people knew how to read. Freeman Marsh had just learned he'd been living in a city he never truly understood. Chapter 2. Lynn's hands shook so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. Freeman Marsh, *** Freeman Marsh, was bleeding all over her passenger seat, his breath coming in ragged gasps that fogged the cracked windshield. She took side streets she'd memorized from years of pre-dawn cleaning routes, alleys too narrow for the SUVs she'd seen circling in her rearview mirror, maintenance roads that didn't exist on any GPS. "Where are you taking me?" Freeman's voice was weaker now, threaded with pain. "Shut up," Lynn snapped. "You're lucky I didn't leave you there." She pulled into the crumbling industrial complex on the south side, a graveyard of forgotten businesses where she rented a studio apartment for $400 a month because nowhere else was cheaper. The building's ground floor was a maze of abandoned storefronts and locked units. Hers included a defunct garage bay that the landlord had forgotten existed, accessible through a rusted service door in her kitchen. Perfect for hiding things. Or people. She half-dragged Freeman through her apartment, past the hot plate, the folding table, the mattress on the floor, and into the garage. The space reeked of motor oil and mildew. A single bare bulb swung overhead when she yanked the chain. Freeman collapsed against a workbench, leaving a smear of crimson on the concrete. Lynn locked the door behind them and finally let herself breathe. Then she really looked at him. Not the bleeding stranger she'd rescued, but the face she'd seen on news reports for years. The man whose organization had controlled the unions that drove her father's construction company into bankruptcy. Whose protection rackets had bled her neighborhood dry. Whose war with rival families had left her childhood friend dead in a crossfire 3 years ago. Oh God. The words escaped before she could stop them. "You're Freeman Marsh." He managed a weak, bitter laugh. "Surprised you stopped then." "I didn't know, but that was a lie." Some part of her had known. Had seen the expensive watch, the custom suit, the predatory way he carried himself even while bleeding out. She'd known, and she'd stopped anyway. The gravity of it crashed over her like cold water. She'd saved the man who embodied everything wrong with this city. The symbol of the corruption that had destroyed her family, ruined her neighborhood, turned her dreams of college into a joke she couldn't afford to laugh at. And now his enemies, people willing to gun down convoys in the street, would be looking for him. Looking for anyone who helped him. "They'll kill me," Lynn whispered, the truth settling into her bones. "When they find out I helped you, they'll kill me." Freeman pressed his hand harder against a shoulder wound, blood seeping between his fingers. His eyes met hers, cold, calculating, but honest. "Yes," he said. "They will." Chapter 3. Lynn's hands trembled as she threaded the needle. The condemned rental unit reeked of mold and desperation, its single bare bulb casting shadows that made Freeman's face look like a death mask. She'd stolen the medical supplies from the cleaning company's first aid cabinet, another crime to add to the growing list she'd committed in the last 2 hours. "You're enjoying this," Freeman hissed as she poured rubbing alcohol directly into the wound. His fingers dug into the torn upholstery of the salvaged couch. "I'm keeping you alive. There's a difference." Lynn's voice was flat, clinical. She'd watched enough YouTube videos during slow shifts to fake competence. The bullet had gone through, messy, but survivable. "Stay still, or I'll let you bleed out on my floor." "Your floor?" Freeman's laugh was bitter. "You don't even own this shithole." "No, I clean it, along with 43 other shitholes across the city." She pulled the first stitch tight, perhaps harder than necessary. "Buildings your kind abandoned after bleeding them dry. Properties you probably foreclosed on before selling to slumlords." Freeman studied her through the pain. She was right, of course. He'd probably signed off on half the predatory loans in this neighborhood without reading the paperwork. "You hate me." "I hate what you represent." Lynn tied off another stitch. My father lost his union job when your organization bought out the factory. My mother cleaned houses until her knees gave out. I'm 24 years old, and I've worked 3 jobs every day for 6 years just to stay poor. Then why save me? I'm still trying to figure that out. Freeman reached into his ruined jacket, wincing, and pulled out a crumpled envelope. College rejection letters, all citing the same reason: outstanding tuition balance from her incomplete freshman year.
$22.
She'd been 19 credits from her degree when the money ran out. How did you? Lynn snatched the envelope back, fury replacing her clinical detachment. You left it on the passenger seat. Freeman's expression shifted, calculation replacing pain. I can give you that 20,000. 2 days of your help. That's all I need. Help doing what? Running from your own people? I don't know anything about your world. Exactly. Freeman sat up slowly, his voice regaining its command. Damon Cole knows every safe house, every contact, every move I'd normally make. He was my protege. I taught him everything. But you? He gestured at the abandoned unit, at her stolen medical supplies, at the intricate knowledge required to survive in Chicago's forgotten spaces. You know places men like us never see. Routes we'd never take. You're invisible to my world. Lynn's hands stilled on the bandage. You're asking me to help you survive your own war. I'm offering you an escape from yours. Freeman met her eyes.
$22. Cash.
2 days. Then you never see me again, and you finish that degree. The bare bulb flickered. Somewhere outside, a car engine idled too long before moving on. They both heard it. The hunters were still searching. Lynn finished wrapping the wound, her decision already made the moment she'd stopped her car. 2 days. Then you disappear, and I get my life back. Deal, Freeman said, knowing neither of them believed it would be that simple. Chapter 4. Freeman's hand shook as he pressed the burner phone against his ear, blood still seeping through the makeshift bandage Lynn had wrapped around his shoulder. Uncle Leo's number rang 3 times before disconnecting, the old signal that meant the lines weren't safe. Everything was compromised. Every safe house, every contact, every escape route he'd spent 20 years building. Damon Cole had studied him too well, infiltrated too deep. Your people aren't coming, Lynn said from the doorway of the condemned unit, arms crossed over her cleaning company jacket. Are they? Freeman looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since collapsing into her car. She was younger than he'd thought, maybe 23, with the kind of worn-down exhaustion that came from working triple shifts and still falling short. Her eyes held something he recognized, the cold mathematics of survival, the constant mental ledger of risk versus reward. They're either dead or turned, he admitted, the words tasting like poison. Cole's been planning this for months. Maybe longer. Then you're finished. She said it without satisfaction, just stating a fact. And I'm the idiot who stopped to help you. Not finished. Freeman pushed himself upright, ignoring the white-hot pain that lanced through his shoulder. I still have Leo. He's old school, loyal to the bone. But he's in the industrial quarter, and Cole's men will be watching every major route. Lynn laughed, sharp and bitter. So you're trapped.
Good.
Maybe I can still get out of this if I... How much do you need? The question stopped her cold. What? I saw the college applications on your table. The past due tuition notices. Freeman's voice steadied as he shifted back into the mode that had built his empire. Identifying leverage, calculating value, making deals. How much to finish your degree? That's none of your... 20,000. Maybe 25. He watched her face confirm the guess. I can get you that money. Right now, transferred to any account you want. But I need 48 hours. Lynn's jaw tightened. To do what? Get me to Leo. You know this city's underbelly, the service tunnels, the maintenance routes, the places people like me never see. The paths Cole won't be watching, because he doesn't even know they exist. Freeman stood, swaying slightly. 2 days. You get me to my people, help me regroup, and you walk away with enough money to change your entire life. And if Cole's men find us? Then we both die, and your college fund doesn't matter anymore anyway. Lynn stared at him, and Freeman could see the war happening behind her eyes. Every instinct telling her to run. Every desperate dream telling her to stay. The cruel mathematics of poverty. How much was her survival worth? How much was her future? Finally, she exhaled. 48 hours. Then I'm done with you, done with this, and you disappear from my life forever.
Deal.
Neither one of them believed they'd both survive to see it through. Chapter 5. The safe house was 12 miles east, tucked behind a shuttered textile factory that hadn't run a shift since 2008. Freeman knew it because he bought the property through a shell corporation, one of dozens Damon Cole had never known about. Uncle Leo would be waiting there with medical supplies, clean weapons, and answers about how deep the betrayal ran. They never made it. Lynn saw the checkpoint first, a wall of vehicles blocking the intersection under the burnt orange glow of sodium lights. Black SUVs, the expensive kind with tinted windows and reinforced frames. For men in tactical gear, scanning every approaching car with the methodical patience of professionals who knew their target couldn't have gone far. That's Cole's crew. Freeman's voice went flat. Turn around.
Now.
Can't. Lynn's hands tightened on the wheel. There's another vehicle behind us, closing fast. They boxed us in. Freeman's mind raced through options that didn't exist. Running would trigger pursuit. Fighting would end with both of them dead. The checkpoint was too organized, too prepared. Cole had predicted every move, locked down every route to the safe house. They were trapped. Stop the car. Freeman's hand shot across the center console, fingers closing around Lynn's. She flinched at the contact, but he held firm. Listen to me. We're nobody. You're a cleaner coming home from a double shift. I'm your boyfriend, who knows nothing about cars. Our engine's running rough. We're exhausted. We just want to get home. They'll recognize you. Not if you sell it. His grip tightened, urgent but not cruel. I've seen you lie, Lynn. You're good at it. Be tired. Be annoyed. Be so focused on your own small problems that you don't even register what they're looking for. One of the armed men was already approaching, flashlight beam cutting through the windshield. Lynn rolled down her window, letting exhaustion flood her face, like she was wearing it as a mask. Evening, officer. Is there a problem? The guard wasn't police. His tactical vest carried no badge, just expensive private security gear. He studied Lynn's stained work jacket, her calloused hands, the resignation in her voice. Vehicle inspection. Where are you coming from? Industrial Park off Roosevelt. She gestured vaguely south, irritation creeping into her tone. Third cleaning shift this week. This piece of junk started making noises around Monroe, so we're limping home before it dies completely. The flashlight beam swept to Freeman. He'd slouched low, ball cap pulled down, looking like every worn-out working man who'd stopped caring about ambition years ago. Exhausted. Harmless. Invisible. ID, the guard demanded. Lynn handed over her real license. There was no point in a fake. Freeman passed across a wallet he'd lifted from a construction site years ago, emergency documentation he'd never expected to use. The guard studied both, his radio crackling with updates about high-value targets and containment protocols. Lynn yawned. Look, I've been on my feet for 11 hours. Are we good? Or should I call a tow truck and block your whole operation here? The guard's eyes narrowed, but he saw only what she showed him. A woman too tired to be afraid, too broke to be interesting. He waved them through. Chapter 6. The abandoned gas station squatted at the edge of the industrial district like a rotting tooth. Windows boarded, pumps gutted, the faded Shell logo barely visible under decades of grime. Freeman limped through the rear entrance, Lynn close behind, her hand hovering near the tire iron she'd grabbed from her trunk. Inside, the air tasted like rust and gasoline ghosts. A single burner phone sat on an overturned oil drum, exactly where Uncle Leo said it would be. Freeman's hands shook as he dialed. 3 rings.
4.
Then Leo's gravelly voice crackled through. You still breathing? Barely. Cole's got the whole city locked down. I need extraction coordinates for Freeman. Leo's voice dropped to a whisper. Don't come here. Vincent's turned. The words hit like a second bullet. Vincent Moretti. His accountant. The man who knew every safe house, every escape route, every buried dollar of Freeman's empire. Freeman's knuckles whitened around the phone. You're sure? Saw him myself. Meeting with Frankie Russo at the docks 2 hours ago.
Marco Castellanos, Lieutenant Freeman.
They're coordinating. Vincent's feeding them everything. Freeman's vision tunneled. The betrayals were multiplying, spreading through his organization like cancer. Damon Cole hadn't just struck. He'd recruited allies, turned loyalists, systematically dismantled every advantage Freeman thought he had. How many are compromised? Don't know. Can't trust anyone right now. You need to disappear, and I mean ghost. I'll try to. The line went dead. Freeman stared at the phone, his empire crumbling in real time. Every contact was suspect. Every safe house potentially a trap. He was a king with no kingdom, a general with no army. We need to move. Lynn's voice cut through his spiral.
Now.
Outside, headlights swept across the station's perimeter. 2 cars, moving with tactical precision. Cole's hunters had found them again. Freeman cursed. Vincent must have given up the safe house location before Leo even made the call. Back doors blocked, Freeman said, checking the sightlines. Fronts exposed. We're pinned. No, Lynn grabbed his arm, pulling him toward a corner where the concrete floor had partially collapsed, revealing darkness below.
There.
Underground parking structure. I cleaned the office building next door last year. The structure connects to old subway maintenance tunnels. City abandoned them in the 80s, but the access points are still there. Freeman looked at the gap, then at the approaching headlights. That's your plan? Crawling through condemned tunnels in the dark. You got a better one? Lynn was already lowering herself through the gap. Because those guys out there definitely know where you are. The first car door slammed. Voices called out, coordinated, professional, closing in. Freeman followed her into the dark. Chapter 7. Freeman saw the trap too late. The parking structure's 3rd level, empty at 2 a.m. except for the abandoned maintenance vehicles Clara had promised would provide cover, suddenly blazed with headlights. 3 black SUVs roared up the access ramps from different angles, boxing in Clara's rusted Honda like wolves cornering wounded prey. Damon's crew. Freeman hissed, his hand instinctively reaching for the gun holstered beneath his jacket. How did they? Shut up and listen. Clara's voice cut through his panic with surgical precision. Her eyes scanned the concrete pillars, the flickering overhead lights, the ancient sprinkler heads crusted with decades of neglect. She'd cleaned this structure for 6 months last year. She knew every crack, every forgotten corner, every system the city had abandoned to entropy.
Car doors slammed.
Footsteps echoed across concrete. At least 8 men, maybe more, spreading out in tactical formation. Freeman recognized the movement pattern. Damon had taught them well. Freeman Marsh. Damon Cole's voice boomed across the empty structure, amplified by concrete and arrogance. You made this too easy, old man. Hiding in parking garages now. Where's your empire? Where's your army? Clara's hand closed around a half-empty water bottle in the cup holder. When I move, you run for that subway access door. Northeast corner, behind the electrical panel. Don't argue. Don't hesitate. Just run. What are you? She was already out of the car, sprinting not away from the approaching hunters, but toward them, toward the central column where the ancient fire alarm system jutted from peeling paint like a rusted tumor. The men shouted, raised weapons. Clara hurled herself at the alarm pole, yanking it down with both hands as bullets sparked off concrete inches from her head. Nothing happened for 3 eternal seconds. Then the entire structure came alive. Alarm bells shrieked like dying machinery. Every sprinkler head, 40 years of accumulated pressure and corroded pipes, exploded simultaneously. Not a gentle rain, but a deluge, a cascading wall of rust-colored water that turned the fluorescent lighting into a chaotic strobe of shadows and blinding reflections. Clara hit the ground and rolled behind a concrete pillar as the hunter's shouts dissolved into confusion. The water was so heavy Freeman could barely see 5 feet ahead. But he saw Clara's silhouette gesturing frantically toward the northeast corner, and his body moved on instinct, decades of survival overriding his wounded pride. They crashed through the subway access door as bullets chewed through the metal frame behind them. The stairwell swallowed them into darkness, into the forgotten tunnels beneath Chicago's skin, into the places only maintenance workers and desperate people knew existed. Behind them, Damon's furious voice echoed through the flooded structure, already fading. Find them, every exit, every tunnel. He doesn't leave this city alive. But they were already gone, ghosts in the machinery, saved by rust and water, and a poor girl's intimate knowledge of neglect. Chapter 8. Freeman made the call at 3 a.m. from a burner phone Lynn had stolen from a gas station 2 days ago. Uncle Leo's voice came through scratchy and cautious, but when Freeman spoke the old recognition code, the lake freezes north to south. The tension bled from the line. Leo had survived Damon's purge by pure luck and paranoia, holed up in a freight container on the South Docks with 2 loyal guns and a decade's worth of grudges. I need you at the Riverside Rail Yard, Freeman said. Tomorrow night. Bring everyone who's still breathing and still loyal. That's suicide, Freeman. Cole's got 40 soldiers now, maybe more. He's absorbed half the... I'm not asking you to win, Leo. I'm asking you to show up. Silence. Then a low chuckle. You've got a plan. I've got a ghost. Freeman glanced at Lynn, who sat cross-legged on the sagging mattress, cleaning dirt from under her fingernails with the studied disinterest of someone pretending not to listen. Cole thinks he knows all my moves. He doesn't know hers. After he hung up, Lynn didn't look at him.
So this is it.
The big showdown. You're going to get a bunch of people killed in some abandoned train yard. Rail yard. And yes. And me. Freeman pulled a creased envelope from his jacket, the one he'd been carrying since they'd stopped at that FedEx store in Bridgeport. Inside was a single page, a bank routing number, an account number, and a notarized letter of instruction. Below that, a life insurance policy with her name on it, paid in full, $100,000 death benefit. You take this. Tomorrow morning, you drive to the Fifth Third Bank on Ashland. You don't come near the rail yard. You don't look for news. You don't try to help. His voice carried a finality she'd never heard before. Cole's going to come for me with everything he's got. I've made sure of it. But he won't be looking for you. Not if you're smart. Lynn took the envelope, her hands steadier than her voice. What if you lose? Then you earn that money anyway. Consider it hazard pay for 2 days in hell. She wanted to argue, to tell him this was insane, that walking into a slaughter wouldn't solve anything. But she'd seen enough of his world now to know the truth. Some wars didn't end with negotiation. They ended with bodies and silence. Don't die stupid, she finally said. Freeman almost smiled. I'll try. They sat in the darkness of that rented room, 2 people from opposite worlds, bound by 48 hours of violence and desperation. By tomorrow night, one of them would be free. The other would be legend or grave. Chapter 9. Lynn woke to the buzzing of her phone on the cracked nightstand. For a moment, that brief, merciful moment between sleep and consciousness, she forgot everything. Then her shoulder throbbed where she'd slammed it against the warehouse wall during their escape, and the past 48 hours came flooding back like ice water. She reached for the phone, expecting nothing. Or maybe expecting everything. With Freeman Marsh, She'd learned those were often the same thing. Bank alert. Deposit received. $20,000.00. Her breath caught. Below it, another notification. An email from a law firm she'd never heard of, with an attachment labeled Life Insurance Policy Documentation, Beneficiary, Lynn Marie Jones. She opened it with shaking fingers. Fully paid. $250,000 if she died of anything except natural causes in the next 5 years. He'd kept his promise. Every word of it. She turned on the television while her coffee brewed, already knowing what she'd find. The news anchor's face carried that particular gravity reserved for stories that were too big to fully understand. Breaking overnight, a massive fire and apparent gang-related incident at the abandoned Riverside shipyard has left at least 12 dead. Authorities are investigating what witnesses describe as a war zone. The FBI has taken over the investigation, citing possible organized crime connections. Lynn turned it off. She didn't need details. She understood enough. Freeman had walked into that shipyard knowing exactly what waited for him. He'd given her the escape route, the money transfer codes, and one final instruction whispered in the darkness of that last hiding place. Don't look back. Don't ask questions. Just live the life you earned. She dressed slowly, pulling on her cleaning company uniform out of habit before remembering she didn't have to anymore. The realization hit her like physical weight lifting off her shoulders. She didn't have to scrub other people's floors. Didn't have to work 3 jobs just to stay broke. Didn't have to defer her dreams another semester, another year, another lifetime. Her laptop sat on the kitchen table, the college enrollment page still bookmarked from a month ago when hope felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. She opened it, filled out the forms, submitted her deposit with money that existed now, real and solid and hers. Outside her window, Chicago woke up like it always did, indifferent to the wars fought in its shadows, to the kings who fell and rose and disappeared. The city didn't care that Lynn Jones had spent 2 days running from killers, or that she'd saved a monster, or that she'd been saved by one in return. She was still Lynn Jones, the cleaner's daughter from the wrong side of the tracks. But now she was also the woman who'd survived Freeman Marsh's war and walked away with her life, her dignity, and her future finally in her own hands. She poured her coffee and opened her first college textbook. Somewhere in the city, Freeman Marsh was either dead or a ghost. Either way, he was gone. And Lynn Jones was finally free.